Warning, we have no idea if the following segment is legit or not. Keep that in mind while you listen. Let's continue. A mysterious IT specialist, who goes by the name the Forensicator, published a detailed report that appears to disprove the theory that the DNC was hacked by Russia. The documents were copied on July 5, 5 days before Seth Roach was murdered. The Forensicator summarized the complex report into 10 bullet points. The report is laid out by the Forensicator. Based on the analysis that it detailed below, the following key findings are presented. On July 5, 2016 at approximately 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time, someone copied the data that eventually appears on the ngpvan7 zip file, the subject of this analysis. This 7-zip file was published by a persona named Guccifer 2 months later on September 13, 2016. Due to the estimated speed of transfer, 23 megabytes per second, calculated in this study, it is unlikely that this initial data transfer could have been done remotely over the Internet. The initial copying activity was likely done from a computer system that had direct access to the data. By direct access we mean that the individual who was collecting the data either had physical access to the computer where the data was stored, or the data was copied over a local high-speed network, LAN. They may have copied a much larger collection of data than the data present in the ngpvan7 zip. This larger collection of data may have been as large as 19 gigabytes. In that scenario the ngpvan7 zip file represents only 1/10 of the total amount of material taken. This initial copying activity was done on a system where Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, settings were in force. Most likely, the computer used to initially copy the data was located somewhere on the East Coast. The data was likely initially copied to a computer running Linux, because the file last modified times all reflect the apparent time of the copy, and this is a characteristic of the Linux cp command, using default options. A Linux OS may have been booted from a USB flash drive and the data may have been copied back to the same flash drive, which will likely have been formatted with the Linux ext4 file system. On September 1, 2016, 2 months after copying the initial large collection of alleged DNC-related content, the so-called ngp/van data, a subset was transferred to working directories on a system running Windows. The RAR files included in the final 7-zip file were built from those working directories. The computer system where the working directories were built had Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, settings in force. Most likely, this system was located somewhere on the East Coast. The RAR files and plain files that eventually end up in the ngpvan7 zip file disclosed by Guccifer 2.0 on September 13, 2016 were likely first copied to a USB flash drive, which served as the source data for the final 7-zip file. There is no information to determine when or where the final 7-zip file was built. The most important aspect about the report is the estimated speed of transfer, 23 megabytes per second, at which the documents were copied. It's inconceivable DNC documents could have been copied at such speed from a remote location. Now, according to Disobedient Media, we have this. Importantly, the Forensicator concluded that the chance that the files had been accessed and downloaded remotely over the Internet were too small to give this idea any serious consideration. He explained that the calculated transfer speeds for the initial copy were much faster than can be supported by an Internet connection. This is extremely significant and completely discredits allegations of Russian hacking made by both Guccifer 2.0 and CrowdStrike. This conclusion is further supported by analysis of the overall transfer rate of 23 megabytes per second. The Forensicator described this as possible when copying over a LAN, but too fast to support the hypothetical scenario that the alleged DNC data was initially copied over the Internet, especially to Romania. Guccifer 2.0 had claimed to originate in Romania. So in other words, this rate indicates that the data was downloaded locally, possibly using the local DNC network. The importance of this finding in regards to destroying the Russian hacking narrative cannot be understated. If the data is correct, then the files could not have been copied over a remote connection and so therefore cannot have been hacked by Russia. The use of a USB drive would also strongly suggest that the person copying the files had physical access to a computer most likely connected to the local DNC network. Indications that the individual used a USB drive to access the information over an internal connection, with timestamps placing the creation of the copies in the East Coast time zone, suggests that the individual responsible for initially copying what was eventually published by the Guccifer 2.0 persona under the title NGP was located in the eastern United States, not Russia. During the presidential campaign, Politico reported what now appears to be a disproven story about Guccifer 2.0 hacking and releasing DNC documents. The hacker persona Guccifer 2.0 has released a new trove of documents that allegedly reveal more information about the Democratic National Committee's finances and personal information on Democratic donors, as well as details about the DNC's network infrastructure. The cache also includes purported memos on tech initiatives from Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Kaine's time as governor of Virginia, and some years-old missives on redistricting efforts and DNC donor outreach strategy. DNC interim chair Donna Brazile immediately tied the leak to GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump. "There's one person who stands to benefit from these criminal acts, and that's Donald Trump," she said in a statement Tuesday night, adding that Trump has embraced Russian President Vladimir Putin and publicly encouraged further Russian espionage to help his campaign. And according to Politico, Guccifer 2.0 had hacked into the DNC,